Right, apologies everyone, we've had to restart the spaces. I take full responsibility. Unfortunately, my phone decided to reconnect to some Wi-Fi that was next to me and it kind of threw everything out, so I've turned the Wi-Fi off. But anyway, you join us for the second time today for the Great Market Blast, where the crazy with a capital C, Angie Setzer.
Far more fitting.
You need to have understood the first show to understand this one. Well, obviously we will be rattling through the latest pricing flows and market moving news in agricultural markets. Before we do, disclaimer, nothing discussed on the space session constitutes trade or investment advice or infers any endorsement by myself, Ryan, Angie, or indeed PIQ. Angie, and listeners, I apologize wholeheartedly.
I am Bill O'Reilly right now. F it, we'll do it live. Like, this is just a joke. You can't hire good help these days.
Well,
I don't know what to do.
This is it. I was because the thing is, I was talking to you, and I was like, why is she not pausing to let me talk? And then I realised it was like.
It was
anyway.
Like, he's real quiet today. But I knew it was pub o'clock, so I was kind of like, that's fine, sip on your cider. I'll just do the work.
I did myself no favours by sending you a picture of me and Gemma having a beer before the show.
I'm like, he's just dry. It's okay. So happy Friday. Let's start over again. We're just going to start all over from the top. So if you heard the first part, guess what? The second time around, it'll probably be different. It's a different joke, at least. Maybe the same one. I don't know. But I'm used to repeating myself. So onward and upward, here we go. Biggest things that we're paying attention to right now, obviously trade. We've got the EU and we've got China. The Secretary of Defense will meet with China's Vice Premier this weekend. And I kind of talked about this, and you can go back and check out the portion of the first show too. But like, there's a huge change, or there has been a huge change, I feel like, in the conversation, when it comes to negotiation between China and the U.S., versus 2018.
Yeah, definitely.
There you go. There, he's here. Yay.
Yeah, this is what I was saying last time, and I was like, why isn't she agreeing?
Yeah, before I was just like, maybe he thinks anyway. So there's a huge change in the way things are. Like, you've got the rare earth metals on the China side, and then you have this product, what was it that was, part of plastic manufacturing that the U.S. just basically shut off entirely, going into China. That was something that they were like, yo, we need that. And so there's some difference in relationships, or difference in trade, and how we approach it. And when it comes down to it, agricultural commodities are a part of that, but they're not necessarily the thing China needs anymore. Like, a lot of times in our industry, I think we look at China still like we did in, 2002 or whatever. Like, they want chips and AI technology and things like that, the stuff that we've cut them off from, since the end of the last Trump administration, throughout the Biden administration, and now, Trump with that H2O chip and some of these other things. They want access to that. And I guess if that means that they have to buy agricultural products in addition, they will, you know what I mean? But when it comes down to it, it's going to be interesting just to see how the conversation goes this weekend. It's going to be super important, too, because we have an August 12th deadline, to where you could see tariffs revert back higher. Like I said,
it's got to be said, sorry, I'll use my words.
Yes.
It's got to be said, and I'm doing air quotes, not that anyone can see me doing air quotes, but I never learn.
Right.
This August the 12th deadline is, it's deadline with a lowercase d.
Yes,
because,
very low. It's DEDLINE. Yeah, it's definitely one of those where it's likely neither party's gonna cut their nose off to spite their face with this one.
Exactly.
We're not gonna embargo trade between the two. And the US is kind of like, we want manufacturing, and China's kind of like, okay.
Good for you.
Yeah. Have it. They like, our people want, upper middle class lifestyles. So we'll figure out, how to make the switch. And so that's one of those things. We did see, the EU, Trump said this morning, 50-50 chance, that they get something put together. I said, before, like, I feel like we see this blow up. Like, I feel like we see like, okay, fine. I'm taking my ball and going home. You guys don't like what I'm offering. I offered it to Japan. They kind of took it, apparently. I don't know. There's some uncertainty there too, or of what the hell, happened in that regard. Or what is really enforceable versus what isn't, and some of these other things. But, from an overall standpoint, like, getting these deals right now, I think what we're figuring out with it is like getting these deals, and air quotes you can't see, because some of these are just verbal agreements that we have. Like, Japan said, we're not signing anything that says we're doing a $500 billion investment or whatever. And so we'll see. But in the end, like, the more that we can get away from negotiation and the threats of tariff increases and yada yada, which we're not good. Let's be honest. There is going to be a threat of tariff increases for the next 3 years. Like, that's just, it's going to be something that we have to get used to living with.
it's like, well, me and you sat here in the lead up to Liberation Day and said, look,
Mm-hmm.
anyone that's sitting here thinking that it's all going to be, everything's going to be understandable and everything's going to go quiet after Liberation Day, I hate to break it to you, but it's going to get far worse after Liberation Day. And
Yes.
again, after these deadlines, yes, okay, we'll have trade agreements in place, well, potentially some trade agreements in place with some rock in the middle of the Atlantic with some penguins on it. Great news. 10% tariffs for them. But it's going
They're
to
great
be.
negotiators, by the way.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I was doing like winged impressions then, and no one can see that either. I don't know what
Right.
I'm doing. But the thing is like, we know what Trump and the administration are like. If any nation like peeves off Trump or the administration, he'll just come out with tariff headlines.
Yeah.
Tariff headlines just keep dropping again. It's going to
Yeah.
be it's going to be the sword of Damocles hanging over every nation. Oh, look at that for a highbrow.
I freaking loved it. Hello. So that was good. That was really good. I can't even top it and I can't even add anything to it. So I'm not even going to try, but it is one of those things I think we're going to get used to. I think we're going to grow numb to. The biggest thing I want to throw out there is like this whole doom and gloom and this idea that, we're going to just completely destroy our ability to trade with the rest of the world. I've talked about this a lot. Especially in grain trade is very relationship oriented, and you aren't just going to sell the guy up the road or gal, who's been able to bring you, product and bring it to you as they've promised, it's hard to learn how to trust people in the physical grain business, especially when you're doing overseas business. And so if you think we're just going to completely turn the whole entire market structure on its head, because Trump, threatened tariffs or whatever, but the EU does, if we do see that blow up, there is going to be conversation about the European Union and its imports and, what it's going to do, because it is one of the market structures that we've increased our exports into. But it is going to be interesting too, simply because you're going to kind of run on fumes out of South America here for a while. So they're probably going to have to do something with the US either way, in the short term. So, we'll be watching that. We'll be watching all the trade thing. We just saw a headline drop too. Trump is nearing a trade deal with China. I'm going to guess, I feel like anymore, do you feel like this, Ryan, where we play the telephone game? Like you'll see one headline come out and then all of a sudden it like 5 minutes later, it's kind of the same
Absolutely.
headline, but it's a little like someone
No,
else just put a twist
no,
to it.
absolutely. And this is, we get this whenever like high stakes news is on it. We're
Yes.
always getting multiple sources saying the same thing, sometimes saying opposite things. This is where taking a picture salt with basically every headline until you get it confirmed for a few
Mm-hmm.
different places seems to be the way forward. For instance, I'll tell you what, a great example of this, and we spoke about this on Monday, Tuesday, was Japanese PM. There were sources everywhere saying he was about to resign, and then he
Yes.
came out and said, I have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah. I have said
So,
no such thing.
and this is why it's imperative to follow quality accounts and use quality news platforms such as PIQ.
100%.
Oh, look what we've done there.
100. I love it. It's almost like we know what we're doing here. We
Let's
don't.
not get carried away.
Yeah, exactly. So, next thing that we're looking at obviously is cash grain flow. I feel like the world's kind of starting to recognize that cash grain is not moving the way that we thought it should by this point. You're hearing more folks be like, hold on, wait a minute. I'm not quite sure what's going on here, but it's a little weird. You've got Brazil cash markets inverted. You're seeing, the European markets at this point in time, they're not inverted. They're offering pretty extreme carry, but there is more and more talk going on of, some of these end users and some of these buyers really starting to reduce their deferred bids. And so one of the things in grain, that you get to see, or that we tend to see, or needs to take place, is that you take away the incentive to put the grain in the bin. And so that's one of the things that
Right.
we're going to start to see more and more of. And really that's going to be beautiful. It takes time because cash grain oozes. It doesn't move. So it's a very, very slow process. But, if we start to see this market to where it begins to invert and you start to see more in the way of cash incentive to move the grain in the front end, that's going to be the best way for us to figure out if we truly have the supply that everyone says we do or not. Because, some of what is taking place in the cash market right now has folks scratching their head. We did that conversation with Eduardo yesterday, and I was like, I'm confused. Like at the end of what he was talking about when it came to the corn market, he's like, me too. Because one of the things that we're seeing right now in this market, it's happening in wheat in the Black Sea and Europe as well to a certain extent, is just we were supposed to see as harvest progresses, you tend to see the cash market weaken. You see basis fall apart. You see, it needs to kind of allow the grain to come in and disperse and all of these other things, and the market has to work. We're not seeing that. And so that's either an indication that we overestimated the crop a year ago, underestimated demand, from last year as well. Also the potential is there that we're just simply overestimating the crop currently. And so the cash market's got to do its job. It's going to take some time, but it's definitely going to be something to watch. And that's part of the reason why you saw wheat export sales yesterday, above 700,000 metric ton, because the U.S. is the cheapest supplier in the world right now. And, the most readily available supply of any class that you want, really. There's some reports too of quality issues popping up, a lot of heavy rain in Germany and Poland, and some other issues of quality issues popping up in Brazil, to where most of their northern beans, or a lot of their northern beans at this point in time, are having difficulty meeting exportable quality levels. And so now we're seeing Brazil export, China bought 30 some cargoes last week. They bought another 25 to 30 cargoes this week. It's going to be really interesting to see if some of these, commercials or these traders, exporters, are exporting on the expectation of things to come. And suddenly you run into a quality issue and what you thought was there is not necessarily there. So I'm going to be watching to see, kind of how that all plays out. And if you get some switches back over. In the end, though, we're not going anywhere. I hate to say it. I hate to break it to you. Yesterday we had that announcement that China had bought grain. The USDA corrected it with South Korea. And honestly, like the biggest thing out of that is we should not be getting South Korea's demand right now. Brazil should be eating our lunch. They are not. But the market doesn't care until China apparently comes in and buys, simply because it's psychological or whatever. Everywhere else you've got kind of this back and forth. I've got agronomists and farmers, people that, I trust that are not, out pandering. We're trying to make up a story saying that we do have some pollination issues. We have had some issues with it being a little too warm overnight. Like one of one of the things with corn is it needs a little bit of relaxation. I'm going to say relaxation, but cooler weather. There's also some reports that, too much cloud cover, too much heavy rain, can cause some issues. A lot of analysts are just laughing that off, and maybe it's right too. But I think we just gotta kind of continue to keep an eye on that, watch more of, stories from boots on the ground, what's going on with different groups, see if they have anything to add to it. We should get a clearer picture here over the next few weeks of what the true extent of the damage is. But, we're talking, at least at this point, a little bit. You could probably say a haircut, but we'll see where we head. Russia did start selling cash wheat yesterday too. That helped to depress the wheat market, but you can depress the wheat market just because it's a day that ends in Y. So with that, the biggest thing
I was going to say, so obviously I am the tourist in this area. This is why one of the reasons I love doing the show, because I learn probably more than anyone else. But I've always had the impression
you and me both.
The wheat market seems to be the ginger stepchild of the
Oh my
agricultural
gosh.
market.
Yes.
It's just forever getting a beating.
The thing with wheat that's so difficult, or more difficult than anything else, is like wheat is so, and no one signed on to like learn this lesson, I guess, but it's so compartmentalized. So Chicago wheat is your soft red winter wheat and your soft white wheat. So that's specifically, like some PNW and what's grown in the Eastern Corn Belt. And then you have Kansas City wheat, which Kansas City wheat just covers the Southern Plains. That's your hard red winter wheat. You know what I mean? And so that just covers a certain set of states right there. And then you get spring wheat, which is your Minneapolis wheat, and that's, your Northern Plains and things.
Yeah, do you know what? That makes perfect sense, because I remember, 22 years ago when I started in markets professionally. I'm only a young whippersnapper. Well, I look
Yes.
one. I remember logging onto CME or CBOT and going, Jesus, how many different kinds of wheat contracts are there?
A lot of them.
KC, KRW, all this
Yeah.
what the hell?
Well, and they had tried to introduce a soft white winter wheat one, but it just didn't take off because there's like 5 people that trade it and most of them are psychos. I'm one of them. But when it comes down to it, that's the hardest part with wheat, is that it's just not, it's a specialized market. It's a niche market, honestly.
It takes a special person.
Yeah, it's not a niche market, but it's a niche market, right? Like it's a lot different than your corn and your soybeans where, corn, you're trading a 15 billion bushel crop out of the US every year plus, give or take, you got 4 billion plus. And you have a lot of wheat, but once you break everything down and all of that, it's just, so wheat very rarely, gets a shot in the arm. I do think wheat has, is some pretty significant upside potential eventually. eventually. But literally I've thought that for like 5 months now.
But
So
this is one of those
I
that
hang up.
you'll get poor staying long, but eventually you'll be right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, being early is worse than being wrong in grains,
Yes.
honestly. It's just one of those things. So, but it is what it is. And so we'll see. Biggest thing that we need is if there is a trade deal put together with China this weekend, or we see some sort of headline come out where there is an agreement that they are going to purchase more. I don't feel like the market has that priced in. I think the
Yeah.
sentiment has been exceptionally negative. Everyone still thinks that China's going to snub us. This, that, and the other thing. They can't, by the way, they can't. They need to buy probably at least 10 to 15 million metric ton from the U.S. really to just kind of continue to facilitate their
Right.
crush and stuff. Oh, there is going to supposedly an announcement out of Argentina this weekend coming. A lot of folks are saying that Milei is going to completely cancel or like make the export tax reduction permanent. One thought on that on my side, and I'm not alone in this. I've seen a couple other people kind of mention it. The only thing that really kind of made the export tax reduction work in the same sense as the soy dollar, corn dollar, things like that to incentivize farmer selling was that it ended. If you make it permanent, it's just now, okay, this is how the market works, and the
Yeah,
farmer
and
reverts back
we
to,
spoke about this, I'm sure, a couple of weeks ago when we were saying it's just basically an accounting kind of, people were
yeah,
getting stuff out of the way early because, they didn't know what was going to happen. Yeah, if that becomes the new norm,
yeah,
everything normalizes, right? That's the
yeah.
whole part of the process.
Yes, that's exactly it. And so, we'll see how all things play out over the weekend and what they have to announce, because there are some folks that are saying, nah, that's not the announcement. But that is part of why you're seeing the market a little under pressure today
Yeah,
is, oh, well, if Argentina makes the export tax permanent, that's going to make their grains more competitive. They still have to sell it, guys. The
yeah,
farmer still
yeah.
has to sell the grain. And if you take away the deadline, you take away the need to liquidate. Now you could see some early stuff that they've held back because suddenly you're giving them a 40-cent gain on soybean bushels and 15 cents on corn or whatever. But once everyone gets caught up on their cash flow needs, they're back to sitting on it at this
Yeah.
point. And so yeah, it's the biggest thing that I have right now in this whole entire market setup is just trying to assess, is it truly a function of the farmer withholding grain out of the pipeline everywhere around the world in uniform? Or, are we perhaps a little out over, like I've been talking about, the sentiment is demand is overstated and supply is understated. Are we wrong in that? Because the cash market right now is starting to lean in that
Got ya.
we're wrong in that. So we'll see. It could just be a farmer thing, but you're going to have to raise the price to get, to tell. Basically,
No.
you're going to have to make the market move to incentivize them at this point. So with that, I think we're done.
Exactly. Perfect. Well, Angie, thank you so much. Just a quick PSA. Obviously, as Angie said, we've got potential China headline risk over the weekend, potential EU headline risk, trade deal risk. Or I think there's more chance that there's going to be negative headlines on that front. And also, Trump is over in Scotland, sunny Scotland, to play a couple of rounds of golf at one of his golf courses. It's an unofficial visit to the UK, but Keir Starmer is meeting him. So again, headline risk on that front as well. So
Do you
it's
just
one of
need a
those.
caddy? Is that
Yeah,
why
well,
Starmer
this is
said it?
it. Yeah, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised,
You
to be
can tell
honest.
I listen to your and Michael
Yeah,
Brown's talks
there
in the
you go.
morning now. I feel like I'm in the know
No,
when
you
it
are.
comes to UK politics
But
now. And just,
the interesting thing on this is like I said, it's all unofficial, but we'll see. And I know it's easy to say, especially to you guys out, that have natural positions because you're in the trade. But it does feel like one of those weekends where if you could possibly be flat or completely hedged, do so. But we'll see. But I appreciate that's impossible for most people. But anyway, Angie, thank you so much for an incredible week. I could not love you anymore if I tried. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate you, and we really appreciate all the positive feedback we've been getting on these shows, which seems to be going from strength to strength. Whatever you're doing this weekend, stay safe, look after yourselves,